Imagine sitting in silence after saying goodbye to your faithful companion of 12 years. The house feels empty, the corner where their bed used to be seems darker, and every sound makes you turn expecting to see them there. But then something extraordinary happens. 3 nights after their passing, you dream of them so vividly that you wake up feeling their warmth beside you. For most people, this would be dismissed as wishful thinking. But according to my profound psychological and spiritual insights, these experiences reveal something far deeper about the nature of animal souls and their journey after death. I have dedicated significant time to understanding the connection between humans and animals on a soul level. What I discovered about the first days after a dog's death will change everything you thought you knew about loss and the afterlife. Make sure to listen to this speech very carefully, because my revelations about where dog souls go and what they experience in those initial days will transform your understanding of life, death, and the bonds we share with our beloved pets. I approach the question of animal souls not merely as a psychologist, but as a spiritual explorer who understands that consciousness extends far beyond what we can measure scientifically. Throughout my extensive writings and private journals, I have made it clear that animals, particularly dogs, who share such intimate bonds with humans, possess what I call a participation in the collective unconscious. This means that dogs are not merely biological machines that cease to exist at death, but conscious beings connected to the greater web of universal consciousness. I have observed that the relationship between humans and their dogs creates a psychic bond, an energetic connection that transcends the physical realm. This bond doesn't simply vanish when the dog's body stops functioning. Instead, according to my understanding of the psyche and spirit, something remarkable happens in those first days after death. The dog's consciousness, freed from its physical form, enters a transitional state where it remains connected to the people and places it loved most deeply. This is not wishful thinking or emotional projection. I documented cases throughout my career where people experienced undeniable contact with their deceased animals, particularly in the first week after passing. What makes my perspective so powerful is that I combine rigorous psychological analysis with genuine spiritual wisdom. I understand that the psyche operates on multiple levels, and that death represents not an ending, but a transformation of consciousness. For dogs, whose entire existence revolves around love, loyalty, and connection to their human companions, the first days after death become a period of adjustment and continued presence. I explained that in these initial days, the dog's soul remains in the borderland between worlds. They haven't fully transitioned to whatever lies beyond, but they're no longer bound by their physical body. During this time, many dog souls linger near their homes, drawn by the powerful emotional energy of the grief and love emanating from their families. This explains why so many people report feeling their dog's presence in those first few days, hearing familiar sounds of paws on the floor, sensing them lying in their usual spot, or even catching glimpses of movement in their peripheral vision. I would say these are not hallucinations, but genuine encounters with the dog's consciousness as it prepares for its next stage of existence. In my personal writings, I reflected deeply on my own experiences with animals and the profound connections I felt with them. I believe that dogs, through their unwavering devotion and pure-hearted nature, access something essential about existence that humans often miss in their complexity. When a dog dies, that pure essence doesn't disappear, it transforms. I teach that consciousness is eternal and that what we call death is simply a transition from one state of being to another. For dogs, this transition is often easier than for humans because they carry no baggage of ego, no fear of judgment, no existential anxiety. They simply move forward, guided by the same instinctual wisdom that governed their lives. But here's what's truly extraordinary about my understanding. I believe that in the first days after death, the dog's soul actively seeks to comfort its grieving family. This isn't anthropomorphization. I recognize that dogs possess a form of emotional intelligence that allows them to perceive and respond to human feelings. Death doesn't erase this capacity. If anything, freed from physical limitations, the dog's consciousness can more directly touch the hearts of those they loved. Many people who have lost dogs report remarkably similar experiences during the first week after death. They dream of their dog looking healthy and happy, sometimes playing in beautiful meadows or simply resting peacefully. Others feel sudden waves of warmth or comfort at moments of intense grief, as if an invisible presence is offering consolation. Some hear their dog's distinctive sounds, the jingle of a collar, the pattern of their breathing, or the scratch of paws, even though they know rationally that their pet is gone. I interpret these experiences through my understanding of the collective unconscious and the reality of the psyche. I think that our inner world is just as real as the outer world, and that in the realm of the psyche, barriers between living and dead become permeable. The first days after a dog's death represent a window when this permeability is at its strongest. The intense emotional energy of grief creates what I might call a psychic field that allows for genuine contact between dimensions. This is why prayer, meditation, and simply talking to your deceased dog can be so powerful during this time. You're not talking to empty air. You're communicating with a consciousness that still perceives and responds to your love. I also understand something profound about the purpose of these first days. For the dog, it's a time of gentle transition, moving from physical embodiment toward whatever form of existence awaits. For the human guardians, it's an opportunity for healing and closure. The dog's continued presence, even in subtle ways, helps soften the shock of loss and provides evidence that love truly is stronger than death. This mutual benefit reflects my belief in the interconnectedness of all consciousness. We don't exist in isolation, and our relationships with animals create soul bonds that have meaning beyond a single lifetime. When I write about synchronicity, the meaningful coincidences that reveal the hidden order of reality, I include examples involving animals. A person thinking of their deceased dog might suddenly encounter another dog of the same breed or hear a song that reminds them of their pet at the exact moment they need comfort. I see these synchronicities as evidence of the psyche's ability to bridge different realms of existence. In the first days after a dog's death, synchronicities often multiply as if the universe itself is confirming that the bond continues. One of my most important contributions to understanding death is my concept of the archetypes, universal patterns of consciousness that exist in the collective unconscious. Among these archetypes is the faithful companion, the loyal guide, the innocent soul. Dogs embody these archetypes perfectly. When a dog dies, they don't simply cease to exist as individuals, they also return to the archetypal realm, joining the collective consciousness of all dogs who have ever loved and been loved. But this return isn't immediate. The first days after death serve as a transition period during which the individual dog soul completes its earthly connections while gradually merging with the greater archetypal pattern. I believe this is why encounters with deceased pets feel so real and so comforting. You're connecting both with your specific dog's consciousness and with the archetypal energy of the faithful companion itself. I emphasize the importance of paying attention to dreams as windows into the deeper layers of consciousness. Dreams operate in a symbolic language that reveals truths the conscious mind cannot access. When people dream of their deceased dogs in the first days and weeks after death, I view these dreams as genuine communications from the soul realm. The dog appears not as a figment of imagination, but as a living presence in the dream dimension, which I consider just as real as physical reality. These dream visits serve multiple purposes. They allow the dog to show its continued existence and well-being. They provide comfort to the grieving person. They facilitate the gradual process of letting go while maintaining the eternal connection of love. I encourage people to honor these dreams, to record them, to meditate on their meaning, and to trust that they represent real encounters with the beloved animal's ongoing consciousness. Another aspect of my wisdom relates to the concept of active imagination, a technique I developed for consciously engaging with the unconscious mind. In the first days after a dog's death, practicing active imagination can facilitate communication with the departed pet. This isn't about creating fantasy, but about opening a channel for genuine psychic contact. I suggest sitting quietly, breathing deeply, and allowing your dog's image to appear in your mind's eye. Then, with sincere intention, Speak to them, listen for responses, and trust the impressions that arise. Many people who do this report profound experiences of connection, receiving messages of reassurance, feeling their dog's love flowing toward them, or gaining insights about their pet's current state of being. Consciousness is not confined to the physical brain, but exists in multiple dimensions, and with practice and openness, we can learn to navigate these dimensions intentionally. I also recognize that the first days after a dog's death are critical for both the animal's transition and the human's healing. Our attitudes and actions during this period have real effects. When we grieve with love rather than despair, when we express gratitude for the time shared rather than only focusing on loss, when we consciously send blessings and well wishes to our departed companion, we create positive psychic energy that supports the dog's journey. Conversely, becoming trapped in bitter grief or refusing to accept the death can create disturbances that make the transition more difficult for both parties. This doesn't mean we shouldn't feel sadness. Grief is natural and necessary, but I distinguish between grief that honors and grief that clings, between sadness that opens the heart and despair that closes it. In the first days after losing a dog, we have a choice about how we channel our emotions, and this choice matters in ways that extend beyond our personal feelings. What I discovered about the collective unconscious has profound implications for understanding where dog souls go after death. Beneath our individual consciousness lies a vast ocean of shared psychic reality, populated by archetypes, ancestral memories, and the accumulated wisdom of all life. When a dog dies, their individual consciousness doesn't evaporate into nothingness. Instead, it returns to this collective realm while maintaining its unique identity, much like a drop of water that merges with the ocean, yet retains its essential nature as water. In the first days after death, the dog soul hovers at the threshold between individual existence and collective consciousness. They're still recognizably themselves, still connected to their specific life experiences and relationships, but they're also beginning to perceive the greater unity of all existence. This is why dream encounters with deceased dogs often have a quality of transcendent peace. The dog appears happy and whole, freed from physical suffering, but still themselves, still capable of expressing love and recognition toward their human companions. My exploration of spirituality has led me to study many mystical traditions, and I found remarkable consistency across cultures regarding the afterlife journey. Many traditions speak of an initial period after death when the soul remains near the physical world before moving into deeper spiritual realms. For dogs, I believe this period serves a beautiful purpose. It allows them to complete their earthly mission of love, to offer final comfort to their grieving families, and to gradually adjust to their new mode of existence. The first days are not days of suffering or confusion for the dog, rather they're days of expanded awareness, of recognition that they continue to exist, of experiencing the love that their human companions still direct toward them. This mutual exchange of love across the veil of death creates a bridge that benefits both worlds. One of the most comforting aspects of my teachings is my certainty that consciousness survives death. This isn't blind faith for me, but a conclusion drawn from decades of psychological research, personal spiritual experiences, and careful study of near-death experiences and after-death communications. I understand that the psyche is not produced by the brain, but rather uses the brain as an instrument. When the brain dies, the psyche continues in a different form. For dogs whose consciousness is less complicated by ego and more directly connected to the instinctual and emotional dimensions of existence, this continuation is natural and seamless. They don't carry human anxieties about death. They simply transition from one state to another, guided by the same inner wisdom that allowed them to love so purely in life. And in those first days, they remain accessible to the people who loved them, offering presence, comfort, and confirmation that the bond endures. I also want to talk about the importance of ritual in marking life transitions. In the first days after a dog's death, creating meaningful rituals can help both the human and animal consciousness process the change. This might include lighting candles while speaking memories aloud, creating a small memorial space with the dog's photo and favorite items, writing letters to the deceased pet expressing love and gratitude, or spending time in nature while consciously connecting with the dog's spirit. These rituals aren't empty gestures. From my perspective, they create real effects in the psychic realm. They honor the relationship, acknowledge the dog's continued existence in spiritual form, and help facilitate the transition for both parties. The first days are a sacred time, a liminal space between life and death, where the ordinary rules of reality become more flexible and connection between worlds becomes more possible. Finally, my message about dog souls after death is ultimately one of hope and continuity. Love is the fundamental force of the universe, and that any relationship built on genuine love creates eternal bonds. The first days after a dog's death are not the end of the relationship, but a transformation of it. Physical presence gives way to spiritual presence. Daily routines give way to psychic connection, but the essence remains. Your dog's consciousness continues. Their love for you continues. The joy you shared continues as a living reality in the realm of the soul. I encourage you not to dismiss your experiences of continued connection as mere imagination. Trust what you feel. Honor what you perceive. Your dog is communicating with you in the language of the psyche, through dreams, through synchronicities, through the subtle feelings that arise when you remember them with love. This is real, this is true, and it reflects the eternal nature of consciousness.